Let us pray. O Lord, grant us a daily awareness of the precious gift of life which you have given us. As members of this legislative assembly, we dedicate our lives anew to the service of our province and our country. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports. Introduction of special guests.
Minister of Economic Development and Trade.
Speaker, it's my pleasure, sir, to introduce to you and through you to members of the Legislative Assembly two groups. And let me begin with the group from the Strathcona Christian Academy. We have some 55 visitors. They're joined by Mr. D. Zook, Ms. D. Eisner, and Mrs. J. Adam, along with the bus driver, T. McFarlane. I believe that they are in the public gallery, and I would ask that they rise so that they could receive the warm welcome of the Legislative Assembly. I guess they're not here. Mr. Speaker, we also have another group from the Father Kenneth Cairns School in Sherwood Park, some 46 visitors, and they are joined by Mrs. Melody Kostiuk, Mr. Bruce Plant, and also they have with them Mrs. Vaughn Gramatovic, Mr. and Mrs. Kuchmak, Mrs. Yvette Bortnick, and Mrs. Leona Kletzel. I believe that they're in the members gallery, and I would ask if they would rise and receive the warm welcome. Well, I gather they're not there either, sir.
Edmonton Beverly.
Speaker, a pleasure for me this morning to introduce the Horse Hill School who are visiting the legislature today. Mr. Speaker, this is a group that's it's in the rural portion of my constituency, and I welcome here to the legislature. There are 19 students here, Mr. Speaker. They're accompanied by their teacher, Miss Ruth Sherwin. I'd ask them to rise and receive the welcome in the legislature.
Member for Edmonton Mill Woods.
Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce to you and the members of the Assembly this morning a dynamic group of young students from Ellerslie Elementary Junior High School in the constituency of Edmonton Mill Woods. They're in the public gallery accompanied by their teacher, Mrs. Phyllis Olson, and bus driver, Mrs. Marlene Colburn. I'd ask them to rise now and receive our very warm welcome.
Red Deer North.
I'm delighted to introduce to you today a group from St. Pat's School in Red Deer, approximately 55 students accompanied by teachers Mr. Gerald Dore, Mr. Leo Chauvet, and parents Mr. Dave Furco, Mr. Dong Strangward. And as they stand to receive the warm welcome of the Assembly, you'll see half of Red Deer's sentiments being represented by an Edmonton Oilers shirt up there.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Edmonton Highlands on behalf of the official opposition.
Speaker, in the core of the inner city of Edmonton, the George Spady Center operates a detox program and an overnight shelter, primarily for inner city, but also for all Edmonton residents who care to use the facility. They're looking now at closing their detox program for 2 months this summer because they're out of money. I'd like to tell you, Mr. Speaker, that last year the Spady Center had over 39,000 admissions. The shelter is already running at 98% occupancy, and I should tell you also, Mr. Speaker, that while they're only funded for 50 beds, they actually operate 65 with only 3 staff. My question is to the chairman of ADAC, and that is this. Considering the emergency that the Spady Center is now facing, is he prepared to channel more money from ADAC into the Spady Center so that it doesn't have to close its operation for 2 months this summer?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, the Spady facility, which is basically a detox center in Edmonton that takes care of about 4,000 people a year. I think it's 4,300 last year. They have 70 spaces that they use within the facility. And Mr. Speaker, the facility itself, due to some funding activities there, has determined that they will close for 2 months this summer, July and August. And it was deemed that they would close at that period of time because of the weather situation rather than at the end of the year in the wintertime, keeping people off the street. It should also be recognized, Mr. Speaker, that any person that wishes to go to the center in the evening, which most people do, that it will remain open those 2 months for detoxification, but it will not be open during the day period. So, Mr. Speaker, to suggest that the facility will completely close is erroneous. It will remain open, and I should also add, Mr. Speaker, that all the funded agencies that ADAC participates with received an increase of funding this year. And I feel that with the other activities that the centers and all of these funded agencies pursue with in raising their own monies, that ADAC in general terms has funded them quite adequately.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I challenge that. If they're only being given funding for 50 beds and they're operating 65 at full capacity, obviously there's something the matter with this picture. Mr. Speaker, the member's response was basically, it's summertime, they can sleep in the streets. That's no way to treat inner city residents. It's a despicable response from a government that doesn't care about inner city residents. Is the member not prepared to find additional funding so that they can keep their detox program going and their emergency shelter program going?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest the member not try to put words into my mouth. There's no suggestion whatsoever we're going to have people sleeping on streets. Mr. Speaker, I did indicate that the facility will remain open in the evening for people to be detoxed and to go into that facility overnight. Now, if that's putting people on the street, I'm sorry, but that is not correct. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I did indicate that the facility has been given an increase in funding for this fiscal year. There has been some carryover of a deficit, and the board of directors at the facility have made a decision on how to deal with their deficit. And I cannot, at this point in time, offer any additional funding through the ADAC ability to fund that program.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier created this thing, what's it called? The Family Life and Substance Abuse Foundation last year. It's getting $5 million for the purposes of research. Research is very important, make no doubt about that. On the other hand, if people are going to be turned away from a detox program that they really need, that's frontline help. Will the chairman of ADAC now plead with the Premier to have funding diverted from the Family Life and Substance Abuse Foundation to ADAC for the purposes of keeping the Spady Center detox program open this summer?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the foundation doesn't come under the perusal of ADAC, of course, and certainly the makeup of that foundation was done in such a manner where it would not duplicate the services of ADAC. Certainly, the minister responsible for the foundation would be better able to address that, and I would refer it to him on his return.
Second main question.
Question to member for Edmonton Strathcona, please.
Kona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are for the Honourable Attorney General. The recent trial in the case of a sexual assault of a 13-year-old girl highlights the lack of understanding, sensitivity, and proper procedures that characterize all too many sexual assault cases, such as a failure to access the child witness preparation program to prepare the juvenile complainant before the trial, and the failure to call several key witnesses. To the Attorney General, given that the mother, Dawn Pearson, who is present in the galleries this morning,
has brought her concerns to the attention of the Attorney General. Is the Attorney General satisfied with the manner in which this prosecution was conducted?
Mr. Speaker, that's fine. We'll take it in the character that it was offered. I have received correspondence from Mrs. Pearson. I have asked my officials to investigate the allegation that the prosecution did not, in fact, conduct the case properly. I have not had the response at this time. I do have, frankly, very great esteem for how our Crown prosecutors conduct the case, but we will look at this one and find out.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Speaker, the failure, and this is beyond controversy, that the failure to utilize the child witness court preparation program is the most disturbing aspect of the case. And given that that program sets forth clear guidelines for the briefing of witnesses, and that it is general procedure to have prosecutors conduct at least one pretrial meeting in sex assault cases where there is a witness, will the Attorney General explain what purpose the program serves if the procedures and guidelines are not followed?
Mr. Speaker, I'm amazed at the honourable member being a member of the Law Society who is not involved in this case at all, other than a representation by one of the parents in this, that he can come up and make that type of allegation. I think it detracts from his professionalism as a lawyer and also as a member of this assembly. The first answer I gave said that we are looking into this and to the allegations that have been made, and it will be reported once that's complete.
Mr. Speaker, the situation in other jurisdictions is that they utilize a procedure where there is a specific assignment of female prosecutors to handle cases such as this, and I'm wondering if the Attorney General will set up a system similar to the model in other jurisdictions so that victims of sexual assault cases are assured of a sensitive and sensible approach to the prosecution of such matters.
Mr. Speaker, I'm again amazed that the honourable member would imply that only females are parents. There are males that are parents, there are males that are as sensitive to anything that goes on in this society, and I disregard that representation.
Huggy McKnight on behalf of the Liberal Party.
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Government of Alberta released its own version of the Allaire Report at the Western Premier's Conference, entitled Rebalancing Federal-Provincial Spending Responsibilities. The report promotes a wholesale transfer of tax and spending powers to the provinces at the expense of the federal government. I remind members that during hearings of the Select Committee, 60% of Albertans told us they like the current division of powers. My question to the Deputy Premier is this: would the Deputy Premier explain why his government supports or proposes a radically decentralized federal state? This is clearly opposite to what Albertans told us.
I don't know what report the honourable member has been reading. The fact of the matter is, what the report asks for is that the current responsibilities provided for in the Constitution of Canada that the provinces are asked to carry out be given proper funding, and that the provinces be given the room that is necessary in the taxation field to carry out the current set of responsibilities. The report does not ask for a transfer of additional responsibilities from the federal government, just the opportunity now for us as a government, given the current set of responsibilities, to carry out those responsibilities. It's a strange reaction on the part of the member for Knight.
Speaker, my caucus believes that this disentanglement or this realignment of taxing powers will in fact change the jurisdictional and shared jurisdiction which we now have in favor of stronger exclusive provincial jurisdiction. And I'd like to ask the Deputy Premier, how does this differ from Quebec's position?
Which is just...
What the member from Ignite and her caucus are confused on the issue. What the Allaire report asked for was a transfer from the federal government and the responsibilities it has in the Constitution to the province entirely. That's quite different. And the honourable member can point to one example in the document that was tabled yesterday that recommends the transfer of one responsibility from the list of those now dealt with by the federal government. I'd like to hear it. The fact of the matter is, however, the federal government has, through its taxing and spending power, intruded itself into areas of provincial responsibility, many times to the detriment of the ability of the provinces to carry out that responsibility by having made funding available and then having withdrawn it. And as the report points out in the case of Alberta, almost $1 billion in this current fiscal year less has been paid by the federal government than they had originally committed to doing. That's the concern that we have, and it's that type of offloading or withdrawing of its financial support, having entered into areas of provincial responsibility, that's creating the fiscal problem that our government is facing today.
Never trust the Tory.
Mr. Speaker, we believe that the federal government needs the power to establish national standards. That is the very fabric of this country. It is what Albertans support. So I would ask the Deputy Premier, can the Minister indicate whether this disentanglement report represents a component of the negotiations of Alberta's agenda at the discussions and is a means to gain Quebec support for Triple E Senate?
Well, I know what the Liberal Party's position has always been, and they supported the National Energy Program. They supported the National Energy Program because they believed that the federal government had to have all the power to strip from this province billions of dollars of our natural resource revenues. We know what the Liberal Party of Alberta's position has been relative to the subject of transferring to the federal government the responsibilities that this government is entitled to carry out. We've heard about that from them for a long time, and Albertans should be reminded of it, and I'm delighted that the honourable member from Ignite has expressed that again in this assembly today. The answer to the questions which he has posed relative to the issue of a trade-off with respect to the Triple E Senate is absolute nonsense. The fact of the matter is that the Triple E Senate is proposed by Alberta as an instrument to promote national unity, to make the federal parliament function properly in the federal state, and we will stick to that responsibility. Cypress Radcliffe, followed by Edmonton Avonmore. Cypress Radcliffe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question this morning is to the Minister of Environment. And Mr. Speaker, for the first time in quite a number of years, we have farmers in my constituency irrigating already, probably 2 weeks to a month earlier than normal. We have river flows, and some information I've read, 50, 60, and maybe less % of than normal. The wind is blowing, it's not raining. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, it may not be important to the Liberals that there's drought in southern Alberta, but Mr. Speaker, I tell you, it's damn important to my constituents. My question to the Minister, Mr. Speaker, is I wonder if he can inform this Assembly on the snowpack, the average snowpack that exists in the mountains, and how long that snowpack is projected to last this year.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I concur with the honourable member's statement that it might not be important to the Liberals. I recall the environmental critic, the honourable member for Edmonton Meadowlark, being down in the constituency of Littlebow and Highwood, telling the people in Highwood one story and telling the people in Littlebow exactly the opposite. But with respect to the snowpack, we have 50 to 70% of average snowpack in Waterton, St. Mary's headwaters. Upstream of the Old Man Dam is 50 to 60% of an average snowpack. The water supply for the summer for the St. Mary's River is 75% of average. The Belly, 70%. The Waterton River, 65%. The Old Man Dam inflow, 45% of average. But because of the dam, because of the Old Man River Dam, the river at Lethbridge will be at about 60% of average, which would be far better than normal.
I know the member for Cypress Redcliffe in his first line of questions is very concerned about the issue in southern Alberta, but I know he really meant to refer to dams that hold water, but will still be happy enough to withdraw the use of the phrase dam.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, did you say dam or did I?
Mr. Speaker, I would withdraw that comment, but I would still say, Mr. Speaker, I know members of this Assembly on all sides have relations in southern Alberta, and I'm surprised that it isn't important to them as well. Mr. Speaker, the second supplementary question is related to a letter and comments that the Mayor of Medicine Hat has forwarded to the Minister with the concerns of that city and those receiving water, and because of the use of electrical power generation, water in that city. If the Minister can assure this Assembly that prosperous city and progressive city in southern Alberta will receive enough water so that their system of generation can carry on and their water system can carry on.
Good question. Well, as you know, the Old Man River and the Bow River feed into the South Saskatchewan, which is of major concern to the Mayor of Medicine Hat. Basically, the irrigating districts off both the Old Man and the Bow drew off earlier than usual, which decreased the flows in those rivers. Their reservoirs are now full. There's now a return to those rivers, so the problem shouldn't be as serious as the mayor originally thought it was going to be. And I think that the situation will further improve when the Old Man Dam reservoir is full and we can release even more water, which should strengthen the position of the South Saskatchewan River Basin.
Avonmore.
Mr. Speaker, my questions are to the Solicitor General. Without conviction and jail time, wife batters often do not develop the will to end their abusive behavior. Without treatment, they often lack the attitudes and skills necessary to end abusive behavior. In light of the tough sentencing guidelines announced yesterday by the Alberta Court of Appeal for men who assault their wives, will the Solicitor General give specific information as to how he will ensure that treatment resources are available to men who have been found guilty of battering their wives?
Mr. Speaker, we were encouraged by those guidelines yesterday that were brought out, and I will stand before this Assembly and assure you that we will be bringing forth programs in the Solicitor General's Department, as well as other departments such as Social Services and the Department of Health that will address this. In corrections, we will be looking at programs that look at rehabilitation of the battered and, of course, upgrading our correctional staff and officers and counselors in working with them while they're within our facilities.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I had hoped for some very specific answers, because we have had generalities for a number of months, including in the budget address. In the meantime, treatment programs such as Changing Ways face closure due to the lack of funding. So once again, will the minister outline what specific programs that will be receiving funding so that agencies are not, and batterers and their families are not left in limbo while the government consults?
Mr. Speaker, the specific program of changing ways that the member referred to, I believe we'll be getting funding through the Wild Rose Foundation and some other departments in government. So if I stand corrected in that, I would ask the honourable member to bring that forward to me if she has other information that isn't clarified by that statement that I just made. As we go through the difficulties of challenging this very important area of our society, we will call on some 500 agencies throughout the province of Alberta and their professionals that they have that receive fundings in one form or the other through social services or the Department of Health that will address the needs of this very serious situation in our society. If the Minister of Health would like to supplement this, she may want to, but I just know that we have a tremendous amount of agencies, peoples, consultants, and professionals, and we're asking them to come forth with their recommendations, and we will help them to the best of our abilities.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Westlock Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to either of the two half ministers of agriculture. They have been roaming around Alberta, Mr. Speaker, saying that the recent result or winter's meetings of farmers have come out about 70% in favor of pay the producer, whereas I know I've attended a number, and so has the member from Biggerville, and the amounts were nowhere close to that. But in addition to that, the wheat pool has now come out and said it's more like 50% rather than 70%. Could either of the ministers enlighten this House as to how they arrived at their percentage? Did they have anyone or any of their staff tracking the meetings and reporting or checking the worksheets?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, we had no staff tracking the meetings. We have never viewed the individual producer worksheets, and I don't recall us ever indicating a percentage of approval or disapproval. All I've repeated publicly in this House and outside is the results of the third-party facilitators who say very clearly in their final report that a majority of farmers in Alberta support pay the producer, a majority of farmers in Saskatchewan, a strong majority support the status quo, and that Manitoba farmers are split almost 50-50 on the issue. The other comment in the report is that the Peace River Block in Alberta tends to favor the status quo. The other conclusion the independent facilitators came to is that a vast majority of those that supported pay the producer supported a bond concept similar to our Freedom to Choose proposal. And if the honourable member hasn't had an opportunity to review an independent appraiser's assessment, all he has to do is ask, and we will provide him with a copy of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The point I'm trying to drive home is that there are as many opinions as there are reports. Would the minister be willing to conduct a plebiscite of all farmers in this province that's holding permit books as to whether or not they prefer the status quo or pay the producer? A simple plebiscite.
Great idea. Great idea.
Mr. Speaker, to my knowledge, there has ever only been one report done across Western Canada to try to assess opinion, and that was a third-party facilitator that conducted the 138 meetings on behalf of the federal government, supported by all provincial governments, as a result of a decision made at the Ag Ministers meeting in Kananaskis country a year ago. At our recent meeting in Nisku, an interesting proposal came from the province of Manitoba, and that was to see whether, yes, I'm getting to your question, sir, and that was to see whether or not we could develop a method under which the individual farmer would have the freedom to choose. And we're working now very aggressively with Saskatchewan's or Manitoba staff. Saskatchewan refuses to be part of it, to see if we can develop that model. And I can't think of a more meaningful plebiscite than if you could say to the farmers of Western Canada, look, you have a choice. You can go in and take your share of the co-benefit out in a bond form. If you don't want to, you can leave it flow to the railways. That would be a very meaningful plebiscite, and I think the honourable member would be amazed at the results of it.
Valley, followed by Stony Plain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The media coverage of the recent Saskatchewan budget indicates a very low priority for agriculture programs in spite of the fact that Premier Romanoff led a farm group to Ottawa last fall. My question is to the Minister of Agriculture. Do you have a feel for the impact on Alberta feedlots that may happen due to the removal of the $13 feed grain offset program in Saskatchewan?
The removal of feed gap, as it's called in Saskatchewan, the feed grain assistance program, which was $3 a ton higher than ours, I would say by the time it works through the system will result in a fairly significant reduction of animals being finished in Saskatchewan and a corresponding increase of animals being finished in Alberta, which is unfortunate for the Saskatchewan livestock industry.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. I understand that effective on the budget day in Saskatchewan, they've also taken another program away from agriculture, and farmers are now paying the full tax of 13 cents a litre on purple gasoline. Does this government have any intention of following this lead in that regard?
Mr. Speaker, last October, in the meeting that the Premier organized, attended by many of the government members and farm leaders of 50 groups of farm organizations in the province, resulted in an announcement made in mid-November that until the end of 1992-93 budget term, there would be no reduction in our fuel support program. Looking beyond that, I would say, unless it's as a result of a GATT decision, I would not see this government withdrawing its support from the agricultural community, which is obviously what the NDP governments in Saskatchewan and in other places are doing.
Stony Plain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Conference Board of Canada report released last Monday provides the government with ample reason to support our education system. However, the high school dropout rate, now pegged at about 30%, costs Canadian society billions of dollars. Mr. Speaker, the federal government finally recognized the seriousness of the issue and created the 5-year, $296 million stay-in-school program aimed at helping students at risk of dropping out of school. My question to the Minister of Education is simply this. Other than introducing his vindictive two-count system and paying lip service to school boards, what specific programs have been introduced and how much money has been accessed for Alberta from the federal government's stay-in-school initiative?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted that the honourable member has asked that question because it gives me an opportunity to talk about Alberta's $2.8 billion stay-in-school initiative, because that's exactly how much Alberta taxpayers invest in the education system in the province of Alberta. But in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, we have a variety of programs, not only in working with the federal government, but I think of our newly developed and in process of being developed Career and Technology Studies program that replaces the old vocational industrial education programs with a revised curriculum to keep kids in school. I think of this year's piloting of the registered apprenticeship program that's been going on in some 8 schools that gives kids in grades 10, 11, and 12 the beginning of their apprenticeship training so that when they're finished grade 12, they're well on their way to being ready for the labor force immediately. I think of our integrated occupational program, Mr. Speaker, that has been going on for a number of years that provides additional funding for school boards to deliver programs for kids so that, again, they will be ready for the workforce. I think of programs like W.P. Wagner in this city. They're moving to a science and technology school in September of 1992. I think of Ernest Morrow Junior High School in Calgary, where they've taken the
Minister, and I think we'll save some for a supplementary, please.
Speaker, I really appreciate your intervention there. I could have given him the same dissertation of what we have done. What he is doing now is nothing, and he hasn't accessed 5 cents from the federal program. However, I'll give him one that perhaps he can answer. Dropout symptoms occur long before high school, and community schools are effective schools and can be a very efficient way of keeping students in school right through high school by setting the proper foundation for them. Given that community schools are effective, and if community schools should reapply, the ones I'm referring to, the almost 40 schools that were arbitrarily cut off in 1987 without cause, arbitrarily cut off after they had qualified for the charter, would he reinstate the funding to the schools who reapply and qualify once again in order to prevent dropouts?
Well, Mr. Speaker, if you and the honourable member had allowed me to get to that point on my list, it is an incredibly long list.
Chair looks forward with keen anticipation to your answer instead of your complaint.
Freedom of speech.
Mr. Speaker, it's just that the list of stay-in-school initiatives that are being sponsored and funded by provincial taxpayers and local taxpayers and sponsored by local school boards is an incredibly long list, Mr. Speaker. Right. And that's our entire purpose, is making sure that all of our children, not just some, but all of our children get the best possible education. And in addition to the high needs program that was next on my list, that's a pilot project in Calgary and Edmonton, focusing on high needs communities, Mr. Speaker, is a community school program. And that this government funds additional funding of some $5.25 million that go to about 67 community schools, funded community schools, to ensure that they can put on programs that assist those schools to run programs to keep kids in school. But, Mr. Speaker, I'll be brief in the rest of the list. But I could go on. I talk about a movement towards a single diploma in this province. I think of our partnership effort. I think of our changes in the science curriculum to give kids hands-on science so that they're not turned off by science and turned off of school. I think of our native education program. I think of a profile of some 21 dropout prevention programs that is out there and available to school boards across the province. Mr. Speaker, in summary, there are an incredible number of stay-in-school initiatives that are being sponsored by this government and put on by school boards across this province.
Tell us more. Edmonton Jasper Place, followed by Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The long-awaited federal environmental review of the Old Man River Dam project is now complete. And I understand the Minister of the Environment has had a briefing, and I would like to ask him if he will undertake today that the government of Alberta will accept and implement the report's recommendations regarding fisheries mitigation, regarding water issues with the Pagan Nation, regarding the archaeological sites before the project proceeds any further.
Maybe the brief.
Mr. Speaker, there hasn't been an opportunity to examine in any detail whatsoever the recommendations the honourable member alludes to.
Well, maybe I can ask him something he can answer. Despite the drought conditions in southern Alberta, it doesn't change the fact that the government has bungled this project from the very start. I recently got a 4-page communication from Alberta Environment outlining a 4-day festival celebrating the opening of the Old Man River Dam, featuring VIP luncheons, ministers' receptions, boat tours, big-name concerts, not little names, and something called a Parade of Power. I wonder if the minister would explain how many tax dollars he's going to spend on this so-called festival.
Oh, yeah. I'll refer that to the Honourable Minister of Public Works, Supply and Services.
Mr. Speaker, communities in southern Alberta have banded together to form an organization called the Southern Alberta Festival Steering Committee, and a variety of communities, most municipalities, cities, counties, and MDs within the southern part of the province of Alberta have undertaken to plan and organize a festival of life and celebration of water between July 16 and 1992, and the sponsorship for most of these activities will be done by local municipalities. I note with interest that the city of Lethbridge just a few days ago passed a resolution to allocate dollars for this. We've got service clubs from the Cowley Lions to the town of Pincher Creek. On and on the list goes, Mr. Speaker. It's a massive festival to promote tourism and recreation and the protection and enhancement of the environment in southern Alberta, Mr. Speaker.
Order, please. Calgary Northwest. Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question today is to the Minister for Economic Development and Trade. The province of Alberta has already taken a bath on the Pocklington Pitcher Butte pork plant, and now we learn that he's planning on building the Peter Pocklington Puck Palace. And my question to the Minister for Economic Development and Trade is simply this: has the Minister or the government been approached by either Peter Pocklington or any of his agents for loans, loan guarantees, any kind of financial backing at all for this new hockey arena?
Mr. Speaker, to my knowledge, no.
Terrific. My supplementary question then to the Minister is, if the government is approached, will the Minister play goalie and keep...
When the government, say when the government...
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Member. You asked a hypothetical, walked into your own set-up play, I guess. Next, Member Lesser Slave Lake, followed by Calgary Mountain View. Sorry.
Speaking of flames, some people don't have any flames. Mr. Speaker, the Gruard Band has recently received their land claim settlement. With that comes the idea that they will begin economic initiatives which will allow for self-sufficiency for their band members. One of these initiatives is the Cree Interpretive Centre, which has been on the planning board for a number of years. Would the Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism provide an update of where in the planning stages this project is?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Gruard Band indeed has done a fair amount of work and planning and has a vision for an interpretive center detailing native life in that area, and has done a considerable amount of work of that over a period of a number of years. Our department's been involved on a consultative support and advisory basis with the Gruard Band during most of that period of time. There have been some feasibility studies that the band has undertaken on their own through private sector consultants. And, Mr. Speaker, we're waiting to see a formal plan that we can react to in some fashion.
I realize that the department has really been ready and willing to help with this project, and I think that there's been a lot of work that has gone into it. However, Mr. Speaker, it seems that this has not been considered a priority, and I would like to ask the Minister if he would assign an individual from his department to work with the Gruard Band to help advance the project as quickly as possible.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm more than glad to make that undertaking, but I think it's important to understand that the responsibility of the province of Alberta as a government and as our department in telling the stories of Alberta are limited by our resources. We do spend a great deal of money and resources in interpreting Native culture in our museum here in Edmonton, the Provincial Museum, through our support of the Glenbow Museum in Calgary and at the Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump near Port Macleod. It would not be our intention to build a government-sponsored interpretive center for the Gruard Band, but we would be able to react to their initiatives in some fashion, certainly through advisory support, which I'm more than pleased to provide to the project, through support through our own department, the Department of Tourism, Recreation and Parks, and others, but it is not contemplated at this time that the government would build such an interpretive center.
Calgary Mountain View, followed by Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Chair of the Committee on Professions and Occupations. My understanding is that over the past few months, numerous meetings have been held with ophthalmologists, optometrists, and opticians, as well, I gather, representatives of consumer groups and representatives of both the Department of Health and the Bureau of Professions and Occupations have been meeting to discuss issues related to legislation in the eye care field. My information is that all outstanding issues with respect to this legislation have been agreed to by all the parties concerned, and I'm wondering if the member would please advise the Assembly if this is the case.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the question. Yes, you have relayed the issue. All parties have agreed, and we should be tabling that legislation in this House very shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that we've just heard there's been a consensus and that the legislation will be tabled, last year the legislation was tabled and then withdrawn, Will the minister assure the House that a bill governing this legislation and giving consumers the right to choose will be passed by this Assembly in this session?
Hear, hear.
Depends on how you vote.
The minister.
Which minister?
The minister. Clinton Meadowlark.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the member for Peace River has stated publicly that a proposed pulp mill near Grand Prairie should not be allowed to go ahead until river studies are complete. To the Minister of the Environment, will the minister confirm that he will not allow the Grand Alberta paper or any other pulp mill project to proceed at least until the Canada-Alberta Northern River studies is completed?
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, there's been no formal application from Alberta or Grand Alberta Pulp and Paper Company to construct anything. There has been an indication that they might want to build a pulp and paper mill either on the Smoky River or in conjunction with the existing pulp mill at Grand Prairie, but there has been no formal application. We have put this question, however, to the Northern River Study Board as to what impact a pulp mill would have, or an additional pulp mill would have on their considerations, and we're waiting for a response from that particular study board at this time.
Will the minister please tell us how, now that he's asked the NRCB, tell us now that he's asked the Northern River Studies people to confirm whether or not he should proceed, how he could possibly allow the NRCB to review that project before the Northern Alberta River Studies is complete?
Mr. Speaker, I have no idea what the honourable member is talking about. I have absolutely no idea. But that's not unusual.
Smoky River.
My question is to the Associate Minister for Agriculture. In the past spring, has identified a real need for the soil conservation with wind erosion in the south and water erosion in the north. Certainly, we've never had a more demonstrated need for a soil conservation program within the province of Alberta. In the past, the federal-provincial CASI program has been most effective in dealing with the issues that we are now presently to deal with. Would the minister please advise my constituents, as well as members of this House, the status of the present agreement?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the status of the present agreement, the conservation agreement, is that we have extended that agreement for 1 year over this budget year to complete the 3-year program that was put in place. The federal government announced in, I believe, January, some dollars in the green plan that would be available to Alberta for a new soil conservation agreement. And we have had a complete review of the past agreement, a lot of input from participants in the program, and we are looking now at ways of initiating a new conservation initiative for an extended period of time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to hear that indeed the initiative is still carrying on. Would this extension of this program be an all-encompassing program? Will it be an expansion of the past program? Could you give us some insight as to just what the process is that you are developing?
Well, Mr. Speaker, in answer to that, the Canada-Alberta Soil Conservation Initiative, or CASI, was a program that mainly dealt with soil conservation, and that is the program that would have ended, or does technically end, in July of this year. The other program that is in place is the Soil and Water Research Program, and it is known in the industry as CART, and that program ends in 1993. The intent at this time is that a new program would be encompassing a number of broader issues than just soil conservation, such as water quality and water resources and extended programs. So those are some of the things that we're looking at in the negotiations and the discussions with the stakeholder groups at this time.
Order, Calgary McCall. No? Thank you. Orders of the day? No. Well, just a moment. Is it indeed point of order, Calgary?